Hello, grade 5 students. How are you all doing? This is Miss Fatin again, and welcome to the second science lecture video. Here we are still talking about plants. Our first lesson is about ways or patterns of nutrition in plants. Plants are organisms, so they need energy to live and grow. When we say organisms, we mean living things such as people and animals. So people, animals, and plants are organisms or living things. Living things need energy to live and grow. Where do they get this energy from? They get it from food. Okay? Different organisms get food in different ways. People and animals are consumers. Why? Because they eat, because they consume. Some animals feed on plants, such as rabbit. This bird, the eagle, feeds on other animals. So people and animals feed or consume plants and other animals. What about plants? Didn't we say that plants are organisms? So they need food. Different plants follow different patterns to get the food they need. Let's start talking about green plants. And here we have the example of the tomato plant. The tomato plant absorbs water from the soil, takes in carbon dioxide from the air, and combines these two, the water and the carbon dioxide, using the sunlight energy. Why is that? To produce their own food, to make food, which is a kind of sugar. And while going through this process, plants release oxygen. Okay, so here now we have sugar. What did this plant do? This plant produced its own food. So green plants are considered as producers and not consumers, or we can say autotrophs. Okay, so green plants are producers or autotroph. Why? Because they produce, they make their own food. They cannot eat, they produce their own food to get the energy they need. Okay, some plants cannot get all their needs to produce their own food. So they make or build close relationships with other species. And here we are talking about symbiotic relationships between organisms. Okay? An example of a symbiotic relationship between organisms is the lichen. Okay? These pictures show the lichen. What's lichen? It's the relationship. It's any symbiotic partnership between an alga and a fungus. So we have the alga. The alga is a green plant that can produce its own food. What's the problem? The problem is that this green plant cannot get the water and the minerals it needs. Here we have the fungus helping the alga. We have the mushroom helping the alga. The fungus gets water and gives them to the alga. Now the alga has everything. It produces food and gives some in return to the fungus. So both organisms, the fungus and the alga, are helping each other. What does the mushroom or the fungus do? The fungus brings water and gives that to the alga, to the green plant. Now the green plant has everything. It cooks, it produces its food and gives some in return to the mushroom. This partnership, this new organism is called a lichen. Okay, and here is the lichen shown in these figures. So the alga alone cannot live, cannot make its own food. The fungus too, it needs someone or another organism to provide him with food. So both are helping each other. Okay, another example of this kind of relationships is the relationship between bees and flowers. Bees take nectar to make honey, while flowers get pollinated. Pollen grains are moved from the male part of the flower to the female part. So here we're talking about pollination. Bees help in plants pollination. So both organisms are helping each other. Okay, in the lichen case, the fungus is happy, the alga is happy, both benefit. In the bees and flowers case, bees are happy, flowers are happy, so they are both happy. They both benefit from this relationship. This relationship is called what? Mutualism. Mutualism. What's a mutualism? It is a relationship, a symbiotic relationship between two different organisms where both are happy. Both are happy. Let's go to another type of symbiotic relationships. It's the orchids case. The orchids are beautiful flowers living on trees. The orchids benefit from where they are living. They use the tree as a shelter, as a home, a habitat. Here, the trees do not care. They get nothing from this relationship. So the orchids benefit, the trees do not care. Another example, it's the relationship between whales and barnacles. This is the whale, and here we have the barnacles, which are small animals living on bellies and backs of whales. So barnacles are happy. Whales do not care. Why are barnacles happy? Because they go with whales to places rich in food. They get transported from a place to another place. Okay, and they use the whale as a habitat, while whales do not care if barnacles were there or no. In this relationship, in this symbiotic relationship, we have one organism that is happy. In these two cases, the orchids are happy, the barnacles are happy, while trees and whales do not care. That's what we call commensalism. Okay, first one, mutualism, both are happy. Second one, commensalism, one organism is happy, the second one doesn't care, the second one is not affected. What about the relationship between, let's see the figure, between these mushrooms and the tree? What do these mushrooms do? These mushrooms suck nutrients from the tree. They absorb nutrients. They are stealing the nutrients of the tree. Are mushrooms happy? Are fungi happy? Yes, they are. Is the tree happy? Is the host happy? No, it's not. There is someone, there is an organism stealing its nutrients. This parasite, which is the mushroom or the fungus, is harming, is damaging the tree, is stealing its nutrients. The parasite is happy, the host is being harmed, is not happy at all. Another example was the example of the Australian Christmas tree that we talked about in our first science worksheet. We said that the Australian Christmas tree, these are giant parasites actually, the Australian Christmas tree steals the food of green plants like grasses. So grasses are being harmed and damaged. There is someone stealing its food. their food, and the Australian Christmas tree is happy. That's what we call parasitism. And during parasitism, we have one organism that benefits, the second one is being harmed. Again, what's symbiosis? Symbiosis is a long-term relationship between two different organisms. We have here flowers and bees, whale and barnacles, cat and ticks. Three types of symbiotic relationships. First one, we're talking about mutualism. In mutualism, we have one organism. We have actually both organisms benefit. Flowers get pollinated, bees get nectar, so they both benefit. They are both happy. Okay, both are happy. What about the second type of symbiotic relationships? Here we're talking about commensalism, like the relationship between whales and barnacles. Barnacles benefit, they go to to waters rich in food with whales. Whales are unaffected. So here we have barnacles happy, whales do not care. Last type of symbiotic relationship, we're talking about parasitism, like the relationship between ticks and cats. Ticks feeds on the cat's blood. This way, ticks get the food they need, while cats get harmed. They are not happy. So here we have an organism that benefits. The second one is being harmed. Okay, the second one is sad. So we have one, green plants. Let me write them right here. Green plants are producers that get their own food, that produce their own food, green plants. Second, we have symbiotic plants, plants that build relationships with other organisms. And now we'll talk about the last type, the last pattern of nutrition in plants. We're talking about carnivorous plants. We call them carnivorous plants because they feed on small animals such as insects. Okay, carnivorous plants can go through the food making process. They can cook their own food. They can produce their own food. Let me remind you that photosynthesis is the food making process. Okay, photosynthesis is the food making process in green plants. So carnivorous plants, yes, they can go through photosynthesis to produce their own food, but this food isn't enough. So they feed on small animals such as insects. Since they go through photosynthesis, since they produce their own food, we call them producers. And since they eat also, we call them consumers. So they are both producers and consumers. Examples of carnivorous plants, we have the Venus flytrap and the pitcher plant. And that's all. What did we talk about in this video? We said that there are 3 different models or patterns of nutrition in plants. 1, green plants. Green plants such as, let's give some examples, the apple tree, the strawberry plant, the olive tree, the rose plant. Second, we have symbiotic plants such as lichens. Okay, and third, we have the carnivorous plants like the Venus flytraps. Okay, give examples. We just gave examples. What do we mean by a producer? A producer is an organism that produces its own food. Green plants are producers. Parasites. parasites, if you can remember, we gave the example of mushrooms. Mushrooms stealing other plants' nutrients. So a parasite is an organism that feeds on others' nutrients. Symbiosis is a long-term relationship between two different organisms, two different species. That's it for today. Don't forget that there are 3 types of symbiotic relationship. What are these 3 types? We have mutualism, where 2 organisms benefit, commensalism, one benefits, the second one does not care, and the third, parasitism, one benefits, the second one is sad, is being harmed. See you. That's it for today. Bye-bye.